While individual acts of heroism can be remembered throughout history, wars are won with tactics and strategy. I think, anyway. I don't know. Anyway, in Age of Empires 2, macro refers to the overall strategy choice you utilize to crush your opponent's army. In this video, I'll go over different Age of Empires 2 macro strategies. I'll show you how to recognize and push your advantage, I'll tell you about raiding, and I'll teach you all about team play in a deathmatch game. Now, before we start, note that a lot of this has to do with your personal style. Random map players are often taught a specific set of strategies that they must use in a certain situation. Any deviation from these rules is seen as a flaw and as a mistake. In other words, you must learn the meta. While some people may enjoy this, I think that's boring. In deathmatch, however, it's very difficult to even identify the meta because multiple strategies will work for any given situation. Instead, it's the execution of your chosen strategy that makes you a good player. However, having said that, in a very broad sense, there are simply some right and wrong ways to react to any given situation. As such, I can give you some suggestions that may help your game. To start, you need to know what tactics to use in the early game. If you find that your own opening has been very strong, you may want to go in for the kill. Patrol large groups of units directly into your enemy base, and add castles and more units to secure ground and keep your army strong. If you then raid what's left of your opponent's economy, you should have a fairly quick win. Don't waste resources trying to capture the sides of the map if you're sure you have a strong chance at winning with your initial attacks. If, however, you find that you're on even footing with your opponent after your opening plays, you should take possession and fortify the sides of the map. Secure golds and hills and make sure to keep your strongest units alive. From your central position, you can definitely still patrol in large groups of army, but be sure to flank as well. Make small groups of army on the sides of the map to take down your enemy's bases and fortifications to give you map control, as well as to distract your opponent. If you have siege rams, definitely use these. If instead you're losing after the opening, make defensive structures and try to keep your army alive. Chances are that if you're equally skilled players, your opponent will run out of resources before you will, giving you an opportunity to make a comeback if you're diligent in creating your economy and protecting your army. This is because, in general, when rushing, you're more likely to take inefficient fights just for the sake of gaining map control or something like that, and as such, you'll use up your initial stockpiles faster. This gives a defending player a window of opportunity to push back and deal damage. However, if your opponent has rushed without overextending themselves, they're probably gonna be in a great position to win the game, which means you simply have to take better engagements with your army. In team games, though, understand that things are a bit different. The first major difference in a team game concerns the opening plays. Basically, in a team game, you can combine your armies with that of your allies. This means if your team has one or multiple strong rush civilizations, you can often destroy one of your opponents early, which will probably win you the game. In order to do this, though, you need to identify and communicate your plan quickly. If you do decide to rush, let the other team players know by flaring the enemy on the minimap and telling them you're going to rush. Hopefully, both your scout and your flank or pocket player's scout will get early villager snipes, slowing your opponent down. However, note that your opponents can also combine armies just like you can. As such, it is absolutely vital to identify the situation and act upon it. If you see weakness in one of your opponents, go for it. Also, instead of having your main armies in the middle of the map, each flank will have their main armies on the sides, and the pocket players often back them up. You don't want to apply too much pressure in the middle, because if you do manage to push, you'll only succeed in letting the enemy surround your army. Instead, stick mostly to the edges of the map to keep this from happening. However, note that you should take each situation as it comes, and rushing in paladins or heavy cav archers down the middle to destroy the opponent's economy can win you the game if you do it right. And finally, you need to identify when you should tribute resources to your allies. If one of your allies is struggling to defend themselves early, you may want to sling extra resources their way. If an ally is executing a very strong rush, it's probably a good idea to sling them so that they continue this early push without losing steam and becoming weak and vulnerable themselves. You can also consider slinging an ally if they simply have a better civilization than you do. Regardless of when you choose to sling, it's absolutely crucial to communicate with your allies to find out the plan. I can tell you that I've won games where my team was simply outclassed in terms of skill because I said, "Hey, I'm the Khmer, concentrate on slinging me," and my team listened. As I've said previously, it's vital to identify your opponent's weaknesses and act upon it. The final topic for this video concerns how to do this, specifically as it pertains to raiding. First, you need to identify when you should raid. In my experience, there are 3 situations in which you should do this: when you're losing, when you're winning, and when you're in a stalemate. In other words, raiding is almost always a good strategy. However, beware of raiding your opponents under these 2 circumstances. If you're winning your main assault, and raiding means you have to take away resources from this assault so that you won't be winning it anymore, don't raid. If you have an advantage, push it, and don't throw it away. Also, if your opponent's economy is heavily defended, with castles, towers, and units nearby, be very careful. You don't want to waste a ton of resources that could have been spent somewhere else. However, if you add a few rams to your army and make it a miniature push instead of a raid, it can be very effective. You also need to know which units to use for raiding. Paladins can be strong because they survive a large amount of punishment and they have very high damage output. Just 10 paladins in the right place can devastate your opponents. However, note that if you lose them for free versus halberdiers, that loss can be painful. As such, I often choose to use hussars or light cavalry instead. They're still just as fast as paladins, and they don't require as much resources. In other words, they're expendable. You can just place the rally point of a group of stables into your opponent's farms, spam hussars, and then divert your attention elsewhere. Additionally, this spam ability also works with eagle warriors and huskarls, while they are a little bit more expensive. However, some of the most effective raiding units are archers. This is because they are ranged units. As such, they can kill villagers incredibly fast because they don't have to chase their targets. This makes them especially effective versus trade cards. You almost never want to make 20 heavy cav archers as the Byzantines, but if you put those Byzantine cav archers in your enemy's trade, you can win the game. Arbalests, heavy cav archers, or other archer unique units all do the trick well, but you have to make sure you don't lose 35 archers for free. If you want, you can split apart your group of archers or other raiding units to make it very difficult for your opponents to find and destroy them. All in all, when it comes to deathmatch, I think macro in DM is a very subjective topic. It's often up to your playstyle. However, I hope this video and the last one have taught you how to use a strong army. However, notice that in order to field such a strong army throughout the game in the first place, you need to have a robust economy. This topic is big enough to warrant a separate video, which will be the focus of the next episode of the series. So as always, make sure to subscribe, turn notifications on, and make sure you don't miss it. Thanks so much for watching, I'll see you next time.